Privacy is a choice, and being emotionally closed off is a defense mechanism. Good morning, and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. How are we all doing, guys? I hope you're having an amazing week thus far. Happy Thursday. I'm your host, Shantel, and for those of you that are new here, this is the Sage Sorority Podcast, where the only do's are your ears, never your dignity. Every week, it's me and you chatting about all things love, life, and going deeper on the most important projects we will ever have, which is ourselves. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And for returning listeners, thank you so much for being here. You know what it is. The love is definitely mutual. Give us a little cheeky 5-star review. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Do me a solid and go on all three so this show can continue to grow. Share the word and spread the message. So as you can tell by today's title, it is a Ask a Sage episode. We love a little AMA over here. If you guys don't know, I have an anonymous link to submit questions. It's in every episode's show notes, so you can always find it. It's also on my Instagram channel. If you follow me at Shantel Russo, on my IG channel, I have it pinned at the top, so you can always find the link. You can submit a question, situational, a little this, that, or the third, whatever's on your heart that you want a little bit of advice about. So we've got 3 good questions today. These questions that came through weren't really asking kind of what to do, but they were asking more like how to read people and evaluate situations. So I thought that all of them really paired nicely with each other. So I wanted to put them into an episode for you guys. We haven't done an Ask a Sage in a while, but I want to make sure that they're high value. So I'm very choosy with when I record those episodes so that I'm answering things that I think you guys could be thinking about in your own regular life and can be incredibly helpful. So today's episode covers a lot about discernment, and I'm actually going to be going deeper on discernment in next week's episode. But today we're going to keep it a little bit more light and a little bit more practical. Definitely stay tuned because I'm really looking forward to next week's episode, which will be episode 51, which is crazy. If you have been rocking with me from the beginning, can you believe that next week will be episode 51? Today is episode 50, which is insane. It's actually insane that the last 50 weeks, it's been me, you, and a mic and your speakers every week. Wow, wow, wow. So much to say. I will definitely do a 1 year of Sage Sorority when the time comes. Also looking to plan a tiny little event. I know I've been talking about this for a while, but I've had a lot of resistance with it. But I went to an event yesterday that I think finally tipped me over the edge. Sometimes I just need to be in the right space energetically, and that gives me my own tipping point, which I definitely had last night. So very grateful for that. So yeah, I'm just being a little bit reflective, even though today's only episode 50. We've got a few more weeks to go. But if you have been with me since episode 1, the reset, I love you. I love you down. And yeah, I'm just really excited. So without getting too ahead of myself, let's stick to today's episode. So question number 1, and I'm paraphrasing, but the question basically says, how do you tell the difference between being private and being closed off? And I think that there's a lot of ways we can go about this, especially with our lives being so online and people having parasocial relationships and our hobbies turning into side hustles, turning into full-time incomes. And that line that we're always straddling of being online and being present, but then also being private and being protective of what's important to us. A few things to remember about that. There's a difference between privacy and secrecy. And I do think that often those words get mixed up. Private people can open up. They're just selective about when they do it. Privacy is a choice, and being emotionally closed off is a defense mechanism. For example, I have been creating content online for over a decade in many different facets. That is audio with the podcast, being on Instagram. I used to be on Twitter. Obviously, I had a Facebook. I had a blog. I used to regularly make YouTube videos, especially during COVID and lockdown. But there's lots of things and aspects of my life that have never been online and would never be online because it's my choice to keep that private. I share a little bit about my family and a little bit about my friends, but not overly so. Enough to let it be known to the world because it's something that I'm proud of and people that I'm proud of and maybe something that I'm doing, but it is not content in of itself. For example, something that I've made very clear and a clear boundary that I had years ago was I was in a very serious relationship in my late teens, early 20s. And we had pictures of us on Facebook and on Instagram. And when that relationship ended, I removed our shared pictures just because I didn't think it was appropriate to have them up. And I made that promise to myself then. I said I would never put a partner up on Instagram unless they were my husband. And now, many years later, I have stood by that rule and I've never been persuaded otherwise. And I'm not married. And I don't even know if I put my husband's face on Instagram. And obviously, the way we use Instagram, the way people interact with content online has changed so much from when I initially made that decision. I just love being a Capricorn because I feel like we are so wise. Like, even when we don't tap into our own wisdom, like, I just feel like it's always there, like a little angel on our shoulders. And I made that decision so long ago. And I would absolutely continue with it now because my relationship, casual, serious engagement, fling, whatever is private and it's not content. And I think a really easy way, especially with the content thing, is like when you post things, what is your intention? If your intention is to share, if it's to signal, if it's to stunt, if it's whatever, it doesn't matter if it's a low vibrational intention or a high vibrational intention, you should know what your intention is. And for me, I don't want to signal anything with my relationship. I don't want commentary on my relationship. I don't want private commentary on my relationship. I don't want commentary on my relationship status. Like, I don't want any conversation, any thoughts, like any proof, any information. I don't want anything centered around my personal relationship, my intimate relationships. And I've been very clear on that. I also am not a relationship content person, meaning I don't consume relationship content from people that I don't know. If I know you in real life and you're posting of you and your partner, I'm happy for you and I love that. I love to see it. But relationship content, couples content is so not for me. And that's a tangent that I won't go on. But basically, the quote, "You live by the sword, you die by the sword," is a very true thing. Like, if you open up people to your private life, do not be surprised when public people are in your private life. So you have to decide, is there a risk and a downside? Absolutely. Is there an upside? Absolutely. It's just not something I'm willing to engage with. So that's the content piece. And I hope that that kind of clears it up. You just have to know your intention with sharing things. I'm also a very firm believer that children don't belong on the internet. I am very firm on this. I don't judge anyone for putting their children online and for sharing, because I also understand the desire to share, that often it does come from a pure and genuine place. There are lots of things that sometimes I want to share, and then I have to literally tell myself not to. Even my own niece and nephew, who I love so much, I would love to share their pictures on the internet because they are so cute, and I want to share their cuteness and my pride of them with the world. But for me, that upside is not worth the inherent risk that also comes with sharing children on the internet, showing their face, and just sharing anything about them, to be honest. As someone who grew up, I think, in the perfect era of technology, i.e., I know life without internet. Like, I know life before internet was a common thing. I know dial-up, I know landline phones, and I've been here for the entire evolution. I'm lucky that my worst moments, my childhood moments, they're not on the internet. And I don't see the upside of them being online. I don't see what it benefits them, especially with the rise of AI and manipulating images. I just don't see the benefit. But truly, truly no judgments on that. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I judge people on a lot of things, but truly no judgment on that. It's just a decision that for me is a no-go. Okay, so I think I've covered the tech content privacy aspect of being private versus secretive and emotionally closed off. Being closed off in real life with your actual friends, I think, is a different tell. And obviously, there's so many different ways that this can be sliced up, but I will say that if you have people in your life that are emotionally closed off, you're never going to have a deep relationship with them. And it doesn't matter their relationship title. It doesn't matter if it's your mother, your father, your sister, your boyfriend, your best friend. If that person is emotionally closed off, it's usually going to be one, if not both things. they're closed off to you, but they're also closed off to themselves. So I just want that to be a baseline because I think that's really important. Now, being private is a little bit more of a dance and is a lot more subjective. I think with friends, when you're building a relationship with someone, discernment is important. So not everyone needs to be part of your private life. Not everyone needs to know your most in-depth thoughts. Privacy is a bit by bit breadcrumb type of situation. Just like you would in an intimate relationship, you probably wouldn't tell your first date your deepest, darkest secrets because that would be trauma dumping. That would be inappropriate for probably the setting and also inappropriate for the relationship. So with privacy, you have to really check yourself and wonder, is this person being appropriate to the relationship? Now, if they are being private and inappropriate to the relationship, i.e., this is someone you've broke bread with, you've been to their house, you've shared a lot of good time together, a lot of quality time together. I'm not talking about party friends because, again, just because you're there in a quantity level, you're not there in a quality level. Therefore, it's still inappropriate to the relationship. I hope I'm making sense. But if this is someone that you're generally close with, but yet they seem to keep things very, very private, even things that you have shared with them, because I also believe that vulnerability in any relationship is a dance, i.e., it's not something you can do on your own. You throw the ball and they have to throw it back. If they are, it's either a reflection of their own boundaries, their own hangups, their own opinion of the relationship or the relationship itself. Closed off people are not going to feel safe, even if the environment is safe. Boundaries help to pace intimacy, right? Intimacy has to be given drip by drip. It can't be all at once. We need the tease. We need the buildup in all relationships. But being closed off and having a wall blocks that. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. I think that being private, and I know I'm really talking about this in depth because I do think it's an in-depth question, and TLDR, it's a subjective answer and it's very situational. So I do want you to know that above all, it's very situational, and you have to know your own limits. Someone is giving you information and data by being very private, either being private holistically in everything, or they're being private about specific areas of their life. Now, you have received that data. What are you going to do with it? Do you want to be in a relationship where someone is very private about their work, or they're very private about their spouse, or they're very private about their money, or whatever area you feel like they're being very closed off with, they're being a little bit more guarded? Is that something that you want? Is that something you can handle? Is that something that you are giving as well and you feel like is fair to the relationship? Or you feel like there's an imbalance? Like maybe you don't want to be close friends with someone who's deeply private about what they do for work. Or maybe it's something that you can ignore. There is a difference at the end of the day of being private and keeping things private and being emotionally closed off, just like being private and keeping things a secret. Discernment, my favorite word, giving context to the relationship and knowing that it's very situational will kind of lead you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, there's no real hard and fast rule. This is truly a part of life that is neither black nor white. It's in the gray. Question number 2. Love or money? I love this question because it takes something that is not binary at all and makes it so. So, in my opinion, when someone asks love or money, I feel that they're often sitting with, what am I willing to sacrifice to feel secure? What matters to me? Do I have any false idols? And the question assumes that one will cost you the other. But in all honesty, guys, and you should already know this if you listen to the pod, the real cost is believing that any of that is fucking true. Love without money is not romantic. It is not romantic, and that's not something you can really sell me on. And the reason why we have this notion is because of media. Because in real life, it's not romantic. We only have this notion and this idea from books and movies and TV shows. I don't know a single person that would actually say that in real life. Because even when things are not going well financially, you still have something, right? Love without money is essentially what? You're homeless? Is that romantic? I don't know. I don't think it is. I can't see the romance in a situation like that because how could your brain even focus on that? There's actual studies that say people that are in poverty, their nervous systems are so heightened because they cannot seem to focus on other things. Money gives you that freedom to focus on other things. Love without money isn't romantic, like I said, it's precarious. And money without love isn't empty per se, but it can be flat, it can be boring, it can be quiet, it can be disrespectful. Both are survivable. Let's just be honest. Both are survivable, but neither is a full 360 picture. And also, neither really shapes what you want in your life, especially if we're talking about the ideal situation, right? We tend to romanticize choosing love over money because it sounds very noble. Let's just be real. It sounds noble, it sounds romantic, but nobility doesn't pay the rent. And that's something that I'm very clear about, even when I'm talking to my guy friends. They'll say, you just have to meet a nice guy. And I'll say, I don't care for nice, because you guys know I don't really care for that word. I care for kind. And also, kind doesn't pay the mortgage. It also doesn't protect you when things fall apart. Now, does money hold you close at night? No. Does money wipe your tears after a bad day? No. Does money give you a big hug on the couch after a beautiful afternoon spent? Of course not. But money is still a form of care. Whether or not we like that idea or we want to articulate that idea. We all live under white supremacy, capitalist patriarchy. That's not my thing. I got it from somewhere and I cannot remember where, but it's very good because it's very true. And one thing I often tell people is that it is not the shark in the water, it is the water itself. Money being a form of care is how you're held when no one physically is holding you. We need to be honest about our lives here. And I do feel like this act of romanticism and nobility is crammed down the throats of women, and you have to wonder the why, right? Consider the source, remember the motive. If women believe through hell and high water that romance takes care of everything, then we are all conditioning ourselves to accept far less than what we deserve, or what one could argue would make us happy. Now, since this episode is more about how do we read people and then how do we take that data and interpret it and move forward, the better question is, does this person understand that love, real love, includes provision? And for anyone who wants to argue with that, for all the parents out there, that is not something you would refute. Real love for your children includes provision. It includes a warm place to land. It includes a warm house to sleep in. It includes nourishing real food for them to eat. You would never argue that. So why on earth do we dilute this argument when it comes to our own romantic and intimate love? Or we treat money as if it's something dirty and unromantic to speak of, when it is so ingrained in all of our lives and it's just as political as the person we vote for. How someone handles money is a great indicator in how they'll handle you, the relationship, and their outlook on life. Because money is such a polarizing thing, and because money is such a central thing in all of our lives, whether you like it, love it, or are neutral, it tells you a lot about someone's outlook. It just is. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news if it seems negative to you, but it is the truth whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. And how someone handles money directly ties into their level of generosity, and we all know that that is the real key here. What you're looking for in a partner ultimately is someone who is generous. You want someone who is generous with their time, generous with their money, generous with their knowledge, generous with their love. It's all intertwined, trust me. Watch how someone spends. Watch how they share. Watch how they talk about it. So love or money isn't a question I would ever answer anymore. And if someone asks you that in person or on a date, I encourage you to push back on it. Because the question is really, does this feel like an expansion and a point in philosophy that we can negotiate together, or someone is pushing back on you, pushing you into a corner to justify yourself? I want us all and always to choose the life where you're not constantly converting one into the other, choosing black or white, but being okay, being in the underbelly of texture and nuance, and making a decision and speaking on a choice that may come off as unpopular. Money is not just money. It's stability, it's autonomy, it's a nervous system safety. It's how you move in the world. And to which degree of freedom? A better question would be alignment versus scarcity. And I will always choose alignment. I will always choose abundance and going after what you want, as opposed to choosing something out of fear. Ultimately, I believe in choosing a partner, whether casual or for life, in which both love and money are running freely, but where I believe that neither are being held too tightly. Anyways, I know that was a long answer, but I hope that makes sense. Question number 3. When you haven't been in contact with someone for a long time, do you delete the chat history? I thought this was so interesting. And because I love to make things deep, because everything is that deep in life, I'm going to answer this in a more deep way, but I will kick it off by saying that I do not delete chat history. I do not delete DMs. I do not delete photos. I do not delete phone numbers. If you've ever given me your phone number, there's a very high chance that I still have it. But because we're in our emotional hygiene bag, I am going to expand it and deepen it in a few ways. So another way of looking at this question is it's not really about the messages. It's what do you do with evidence of people who are really not in your life anymore? How do you know when something is really over and when it's time to let go? The thing is I do believe that deleting and blocking are forms of moving on. And I think they're very healthy. And I think that there's a lot of good to that. But I don't necessarily believe that you need to do the delete and you need to do the block to move on. You can delete everything and you're still replaying conversations over and over and over in their head. You can delete someone on Instagram and block them, but then you're still going on that site where you can watch people's stories if they're public, or using a friend's account to see what they're up to. Like, those things are very real and people do them all the time. The scroll back isn't necessarily the problem, but the question is, like, how do you feel when you're doing all of these things? Keeping a chat history can be a neutral event. It doesn't have to be loyal, and deleting it doesn't have to be betrayal. It's just there. Personally, I like receipts, so I'm not deleting anything. And some can say, oh, that's your shadow self, that's your ego, and maybe, but I also love to have checks and balances with myself. And if I'm ever thinking of something or reviewing something, I like to have that digital history because I like to know, what was I thinking at the time? How was I speaking? How was I moving at that time in that relationship? None of it brings me stress. And most of it I rarely ever actually go through, but it's just to know that the option is there. This is a question also about reading yourself. What does your choice tell you about where you are with this person and how you now view the relationship? If you're asking for permission to delete things, I think you already know that it's taking up space. Am I keeping this because it's meaningful? Or because I'm not really ready to decide? And I really don't think there is a right answer. I think the right answer, if I had to create one, is being radically honest about why you're choosing what you're choosing and what does it mean to you. I tie this often to, I've had a few girlfriends over the past year casually date guys, and maybe they had an argument or a blow up and they're like, I'm so done. I'm so done. Okay, cool. What does that look like for you? I deleted the messages. I deleted his number. Okay, cool. Great. You deleted his number. So now you're not going to reach out to call him. Great. That's only great if you know that that is the boundary you need to prevent any leakages, we'll say. But if you know that deleting the number doesn't really mean anything because maybe you have memorized his number, or you guys talk on Instagram, or you know that you're just not going to call him, but if he calls you, you'll answer, then you're not really doing what you think you're doing. Just to be clear, you're essentially closing the door but opening up a window, if that makes sense. So I think with that, it's like you have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And make sure you're making these decisions from present day, not from a memory in the past. And always remember that your own closure comes whenever you decide you want it. It has nothing to do with another person. TLDR, keeping things doesn't mean you're stuck, and deleting them doesn't mean you're healed. The real question is, does this carry any type of emotional weight, charge, or baggage for me? Healing is not pretending something did not matter. It's just not letting it run the show anymore. It's accepting it for what it was, what it is currently, and leaving that where it needs to be. And if you want that space, get rid of it. But if you want to keep it for memories, that's also okay. You just have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And that's one thing I really want to leave you with this week. Know your why and finish the sentence there. We need to resist the idea of over-explaining and defending and justifying because we really don't need to. Once you know why you're doing what you're doing, that's okay. You have to know your why. And you guys know I love to preach going inward for answers and not outward. Anyways, if you guys like the episode, you know what to do. Please leave us some love on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a Spotify girly, please leave a comment in the little comment box. I love when you guys leave your love. It's always nice to see that the show is reaching different people, new people, and that the current listeners are enjoying each episode week by week. Of course, if you have a question about curiosity, love, clarity, personal development, London life, sex, whatever, the anonymous box is always open and it's in every episode's show notes. I'll be back next week for episode 51. Oh my gosh. And I'm looking forward to it. Have an amazing week and an amazing weekend. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.